what are some of the things that you have learned on this journey? Like, what has surprised you? What has knocked the wind out of you?
Learning, this was at the sort of tail end of my sabbatical, learning that a typical woman reaches peak confidence at age 9. And that just was like a gut punch. Number one, how sad is that? And number two, that's been my experience. And realizing what I've been feeling and struggling with, which I was looking at as a me problem. Something is wrong with me that I need to fix. It is unique to me, and realizing, no, there is a body of research out there that suggests this is not just a you thing. This is an universal experience that women are having day in and day out.
Well, I am so excited to welcome Colleen Bordeaux to our episode today. She is a writer, social entrepreneur, and management consultant at Deloitte. She's reached millions with her writing, serves thousands of women in STEM, academia, and corporate America through her startup, and co-founded Deloitte Consulting's Workforce Experience by Design practice. Her impact has gotten her invites to advise Fortune 100 boards, guest lecture at universities like Kellogg and Wharton, and speak at conferences across the world. In 2020, Colleen learned that a typical woman reaches peak confidence at 9 years old and loses her ambition to reach leadership levels within 2 years of starting her career. She saw her own story in those statistics, got sad, then mad, and decided to do something about it. Isn't that the growth trajectory for so many of us? Getting sad, then mad, then taking action. That's why she founded Growth Inc., a woman's media and leadership development company on a mission to change the narrative for women at work. Growth Inc. helps women feel as powerful as they are so they can use that power to create the career and life outcomes they desire and change the world around them as a result. I am absolutely delighted to have Colleen Bordeaux with us today on our Flourish or Fold podcast. Welcome back to our Flourish or Fold podcast, Stories of Resilience. I am Dr. Taryn Marie. I am delighted to be joining you today with an incredible guest. Meet Colleen Bordeaux. She is absolutely amazing. I have been following her work for years. She is one of the few people on Instagram who can simultaneously convict me with my beliefs about women and men and gender equality, and also make me laugh out loud at basically the same time. Colleen is a writer, she's an entrepreneur, and she's a management consultant. She is doing all the things. Colleen, welcome to the show.
I am so excited to be here and equally a fangirl of your work. So this has been a long time coming.
Well, this is absolutely amazing. I love the work that you're doing. And just before the show, when we came on here together and started to record, we started to talk about this moment that you've been in your career, where you're really driving kind of two trajectories. You are working as a management consultant in a very large, well-known company and firm. And also at the same time, you've founded your own company and you're heading up an incredible organization called Growth Incubator. So talk to us as we kind of kick off our time together about these two trajectories of your career that you've been on, what you're building, and have you had any challenges?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I'll say, and I love to say this when people ask questions, because there's always questions on how do you do that? How did that even happen? I am a kind of bona fide millennial and very on trend from the very early stages of my career, have been freelancing, side hustling. I've been a writer for, many, many years. I got a print editorial journalism degree. I started in a very corporate path when I graduated from college and always felt like I wanted to keep that creative muscle alive. And so I freelanced for publications like Refinery29 and many others to just keep that part of me alive. And in tandem was building this very serious corporate career and working in management consulting. And I hit an inflection point as I reached sort of mid-career. I remember being at O'Hare Airport in a black suit on my way to this very serious executive meeting and thinking to myself that I need to quit this creative stuff I'm doing on the side because I won't be taken seriously if anyone finds out about that. And also this underlying perception that having anything going on outside of your job, aside from having a family, which I didn't have, meant that you were not serious and wouldn't be successful. So I kind of palpably felt that, and more broadly felt as though some of the best parts of who I was were not welcome in this kind of serious corporate environment that I talk a lot about on my platforms, about feeling the pressure to squish myself into the mold of success, be in the Ann Taylor suit, using words like leverage and synergize, making sure that I didn't laugh too loud or let my personality slip out in the wrong moments. And then realize that that was unsustainable and very much in conflict with a lot of the research I was doing for my firm at the time around the future of work, that skills like creativity and empathy were so important in what was becoming the most interconnected and diverse workforce in human history. Yet I was having the opposite experience and feeling afraid to kind of test the boundaries on that. So I pitched a sabbatical under that sort of future of work business case, but also needing time to figure it out for myself. And that was in 2019, with the sabbatical starting in 2020. Took 6 months off. We all know what happened in 2020. World changed, and it created this opportunity to do two things. Number one, reflect on my personal fears and challenges, and realizing this isn't a me thing. This is something that many people are feeling in much more acute ways. I felt it from a place of privilege, and also thinking about it from the lens of the women's experience in corporate environments and traditional work environments, and hearing from so many women that they felt the same way for many years. And then the business case more broadly at my firm to do something differently in how we serve our clients. So that's when I started kind of the dual path that I've been on, launching a business to try to figure out how I can make a dent on the problem from the women's experience lens, and then also refocusing the work I was doing at my firm in a much more meaningful and purposeful way. So that's the long answer to how I've been on this path, and a little bit about a really big challenge in my career that has evolved into the path I have in front of me and where I find so much fulfillment.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I love it. So you went on the sabbatical. The world totally changed. You got to invest 6 months in, not only understanding to a greater degree your own experience, and then also getting to layer on how you could use yourself as a case study, if you will, to also understand kind of the broader experience of women in the workforce and what that means for the future of work. Now, maybe fast forward and share with us, like, what are some of the things that you have learned on this journey? Like, what has surprised you? What has knocked the wind out of you?
I would say the first thing that knocked the wind out of me was learning, this was at the sort of tail end of my sabbatical, learning that a typical woman reaches peak confidence at age 9. And that just was like a gut punch. Number one, how sad is that? And number two, that's been my experience. And realizing what I've been feeling and struggling with, which I was looking at as a me problem. Something is wrong with me that I need to fix. It is unique to me. And realizing, no, there is a body of research out there that suggests this is not just a you thing. This is an universal experience that women are having day in and day out. And I've learned some more research on that really translates to kind of the women's experience in more traditional work environments that are male dominated. But that was the first piece. And what I love to talk about is like when you are experiencing a challenge, and that feeling of loneliness, that there's something wrong with you, it's a you problem. That's coming from a world where we blame individuals for systemic and environmental challenges. And so starting to recognize that like you going through something, it is highly unlikely that you are the only person experiencing that, and like giving yourself grace to sort of take some of that pressure off of it, and starting to embrace vulnerability, which is, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and be willing to share what you're experiencing from a place of service. How do I find the other people that are on this path and do something with what I have learned to help make it easier for somebody else? And I think it's a really powerful experience and learning that came out of my journey.
Thank you so much for sharing so much of that. And I think it's so striking. It's so interesting what you're sharing, because I think, can you hear that train sound? There's like a train really close by.
Your filters
Let's edit that out.
I can't hear it.
Oh, good. All right. Well, we'll edit me out asking if you can hear the train. So that is so profound, what you shared about this idea of feeling like, and I'm going to use some of my language, when we face what I call the 3 C's: challenge, change, and complexity. One of the things that I think, I think it's the thing. I think the thing that makes challenge, change, and complexity, or the 3 C's, so hard is often not the thing itself, but the way that it isolates us, the way that it cuts us off from other people, the messages that we receive that if there's something happening in our lives that's not according to, this kind of positive life experience and expectation, that means there's something wrong with us. And I talk a lot about this idea of like the unique and the universal. We all have unique life experiences. Your life is unique. My life is unique. Each one of us has a unique and nuanced existence. And yet, to your point, we all have universal experiences. There's nothing that any one of us is going to experience: regret, rejection, loss, loneliness, fear, confusion, that other humans haven't experienced. And yet it can be so isolating.
100%. And I think this instinct that I had when I was pitching the sabbatical that sort of transformed my career was being involved in kind of a creative space outside of my day job, helped me a lot in other challenges I've had in my kind of adult life, and realizing that why was it that engaging in the arts, in comedy, in kind of writing helped me process, helped me connect, helped me to feel less alone? And like, how might we learn from this creative world and apply what might work into more traditional corporate environments? So I worked with 2 of my favorite organizations. I was based in Chicago at the time, the Art Institute of Chicago and the Second City, which is an improv training center. And both represented kind of areas of my personality and identity that I didn't feel comfortable or safe kind of owning and acknowledging in kind of this, what felt like a more restrictive kind of corporate world where you needed to adhere to a much more narrow set of parameters. And so what you were saying around like figuring out how to like look beyond the unique to see the universal, I feel like the creative spaces give you this amazing opportunity to sort of punch a hole in what separates us from one another and sort of see yourself and your experience. That's why I think we're so drawn to like the power of story, because it does crack a hole and allow us to like see something in ourselves. I love using comedy because it's a way that when you laugh, laughter is the result of three things: truth, pain, and distance. And that shared truth and shared pain is like where that connection happens.
I love that. So amazing. So one of the things that you have shared on your social media, which I just like, it's so profound for me. I think about it all the time, is that you got like a phone call or an email or an outreach from a young man, right? Like in his 20s. And please feel free to correct anything I'm not getting right about this. And at some point over the course of the conversation that you were having directly or asynchronously, he tells you that he is confident that you could put him in any role in your company. He would know what to do. He would be able to deliver and add value, right? So and then on the other side, here you are leading groups of women, looking at women in leadership, empowering women in leadership, and you're working with women that have proven results, long-term experience, sustained, measurable positive contributions to their organizations. And they are saying later on in their careers, their 30s, their 40s, 50s, beyond, they're saying they're not sure of their value. So what's happening? What's happening, Colleen, from, fourth grade when so many of us are peaking in our confidence at age 9, where we get to a point where we are, as women, I'll just say collectively, driving incredible change and value. And yet, like, we still don't feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, totally. And by the way, that story, those were back-to-back experiences. I had a workshop, and there were women there that worked for NASA, that were engineers, that were some of the most brilliant minds, having created so much impact. And they all said that they felt uncomfortable saying they were even good at what they did. And then this 27-year-old brand new MBA calls me the next day. And it was just this like stark dichotomy that to me represented so much of what we're trying to solve for. Overconfidence is not the goal, right? That's not healthy either. But this idea of like, it really matters that not only that you know that you are good at what you do, that you bring value, which I think most women do know that, right? But that you can make other people believe that you believe you are worthy and valuable. And I think that's where that disconnect was really coming in. So to your question of like, why is this happening? What have we learned? I shared the stat around peak confidence. There's some other stats that I have learned along the way, including despite this confidence deficit, women start their careers wanting to reach the highest levels of leadership, but lose that ambition within a few years. Something's happening in early career that is creating a disconnect and disengagement. And it doesn't return until they're like, basically like in their 50s and like, stop giving a shit. Excuse my language. But like that.
Also, the kids have gone to college.
Yes. They're also maybe coming out of like caregiving responsibilities. So, but what I have learned from thousands and thousands of women, and also there's a lot of research out there that we have engaged with. Dr. Nathaniel Branden did a great body of research on the psychology of self-esteem, and talks a lot about sort of the mental habits that translate into self-esteem and confidence. But when you sort of take a step back, looking at all this research and also what we've heard anecdotally from women, I think we also can see our own experiences in this. Starting at a very young age, women tend to be conditioned to look externally for signals of their value. It is really important that you are liked, that you are accepted and approved of by other people, right? That is like I think an innate conditioning that so many women feel. And putting yourself in a situation where it is possible that somebody you might rub somebody the wrong way. You might appear to be like too comfortable with yourself creates this fear of being disliked and being disapproved or rejected that we hear quite a bit. And I think there's another sort of conditioning that many women experience that is well researched. It's called the power dead even rule, where
Power dead even rule.
Correct, power dead even rule. So the whole understanding of it, based on my interpretation, is that especially in a environment where it feels like there may be scarcity, fewer opportunities for women to excel, women tend to be comfortable with women who are at a similar level of power and confidence that they are at. And if a woman steps out of that comfortable level of power and confidence, starts to exhibit more power, more confidence, there's a sabotaging effect from the group that can happen. And it is why 95% of women have felt diminished, sabotaged, or cut down by another woman at least once in their careers. So this idea that, even if you do start to develop or unlearn some of that conditioning, step out of it, and embrace your own power and confidence, you can experience backlash. And it's oftentimes coming from other women. And again, it's a conditioned response, but something that I think is really important and something that we talk about a lot, because getting over the need to be liked is extremely important. I think in so many women's experiences, especially as they elevate to higher levels of power and confidence in themselves.
So is the problem here, Colleen, I'll use problem loosely, is the problem that we as women care too much about what people think about us? Is the problem that we as women are actually the ones holding each other down and sort of, keeping each other down because we're not comfortable seeing another woman advance beyond our station? Is it both and?
I think it's extremely complex, but I think the sort of at the environment level, like we do live in a patriarchal society where the culture of disrespect towards women is very real. I think so much of our content that we laugh at that goes viral is because it highlights the disrespect that women routinely get and oftentimes don't even notice because it's just part of our cultural norms. But that if we were to direct that type of language and behavior towards men, it would be game over, right? So we are living in this culture of disrespect towards women where women internalize that. And so learning that like you are less than as a woman, your ability to kind of excel is related to being approved of by men. And also, I think in certain situations, separating yourself from other women. There's research on that sort of phenomenon that I think is central to some of that research that I shared. And it's not that women are the problem, right? It's that they have absorbed a culture of disrespect towards other women or towards women in general that applies to themselves and applies to the women that they interact with. And I think it does take some conscious effort to kind of work your way out of that conditioning. I think the second piece is really looking at the like individual agency piece. And I think the absolute best thing you can do to improve your agency as a woman is to be aware of that conditioning, make conscious choices to reject it, and like love yourself so much that you do not care how others are perceiving you. You don't rely on external validation and approval in order to lead a self-directed life and career. And I think building the courage to start to test that, and as somebody who's fully on the other side of it, you realize that you don't need it, right? So hopefully that answered your question. There's so much to unpack there.
I love it. Where do you think you are, Colleen, on living that, being an agency with yourself, living that self-directed life, not being reliant on the sort of external messages that you're receiving? Sort of where would you say you are on that continuum? And who do you think, or who else do you think, depending on where you say you are, is doing it really well?
Such a good question. So I think that I am in a place where I have gotten very clear on whose perspectives, opinions, and critiques are valuable and accretive in my life. And that's kind of the first step of clarifying where valuable feedback comes from in your life that is worth tuning in and paying attention to. And
so let me just jump in. Let me just jump in right there. Don't forget what you were going to say next.
Yes, I won't.
How do you turn down the page? How do you determine that? How do you determine who to listen to, who not to listen to? How have you decided, or how would you advise women to decide?
Okay, well, I think we first have to get super clear on our own values. You as a human being, what matters most to you? What do you value? How do you give yourself permission to let that lead the way? That took me a long time, right? To be like, well, of the values I was raised with that I think have been projected onto me, where am I as Colleen in terms of my value system? And like, who is the type of human being that I want to grow into based on that value system? Getting very clear on that, which does take a lot of self-work, looking inward, and giving yourself the permission. I think the second piece is then like working on what I like to call like self-trust, which is like, you have all the tools within you to like lead that, lead from a place of your own values and use your intuition and self-trust as a guide. So that's kind of foundational work that I think has to happen before you can start to think about, on my path to growth, who are the people that are kind of on this path with me, invested in me, in my development, in my growth, supportive of where I want to be going next, that deserve to have a voice and a say, and whose feedback I'm going to need to get better. And those, I don't think that group of people is necessarily static, right? There are, I think, certain people in your life, like if you have a partner, for example, and you're in a healthy relationship like I do, like my partner's feedback and his say and like his support on my journey is like of critical importance to me. My parents, right? There's aspects of my value system that do not align with my parents. I love them for who they are, but their say in the choices I'm making around my career and family is something that I acknowledge is coming from a place of love, but I don't allow it to affect me and direct my choices the way I did when I was much younger. And then, of course, I think the last piece of all of the friends and colleagues and acquaintances that come in your way, I think starting to pay very close attention to how you feel after every interaction with that person. We do not revisit our strategy for making friends after kindergarten, but I think especially as women, you really need to, because the people that you spend time with, that you allow to influence your thinking, have this outsized effect on your outcomes. And getting very clear on like, this person, even if it's not obvious to me, like makes me feel bad about myself after I talk with them, makes me doubt my choices, pours water on my fire, makes me lose my excitement and joy about something that I previously was excited and joyful about. And then making choices to release them with love. Like, I hope you'll be inspired by my journey, but you're no longer a part of it. And I'm no longer going to be accepting your energy on my way. And that has been like the biggest change I think I've made in my like friendships and acquaintances since my, 20s.
That's beautiful. I love that last part about releasing them with love. That to me, is such a beautiful ad. And I think everything that you said is so powerful about how you make those determinations, how you listen deeply to how you feel within yourself, within your body after those conversations. And when you recognize that you need or want to make a change, to release that person with love. That's a beautiful, beautiful addition.
Thank you very much. And I think it sounds beautiful, but it's sometimes hard to do in
Oh,
reality.
yeah.
You've known people for years and you're just like, you know what? I just need to take a step back, and it doesn't have to be an intentional conversation. Oftentimes I think it's better if it's not, but like, how do you kind of redirect your energy? So that could be a whole another podcast episode.
Yeah. Or like I let him stay too long in my life. And then I'm just like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Good luck. Deuces. So that whole like release with love is a beautiful reminder.
100%. My friend Irby said this, which is the ones that maybe feel harder to release with love or don't go away quietly. And I think it's like the intense version of like, I hope you're inspired by my journey and my light. I won't let you dim it, but like, hopefully it'll, inspire you in the future. She had this like platter that said, "May the bridges I burn light the way."
Oh yeah. I have, yeah, I have that quote.
That's a great quote. And because I do think that there are instances where there are people that you do have to sometimes burn a bridge and be like, this person is like not healthy in my life and career path, and they're not going to like this new boundary. That's okay, because it will light the way of where I'm going next. And I'm comfortable with them not liking it or being comfortable with it.
Sure. Absolutely. I love that. So probably since kindergarten, I've been in friend groups of women, let's just say, sake of ease, it's like 4 or 5 women, including me. And I would say probably 8 or 9 different times or more since kindergarten, grades, high school, middle school, college, even now, even becoming friends with moms of where we have children of the same age. So we'll be friends. We'll be like hanging out, the 4 or 5 of us, a few times, or maybe for a couple months. And then all of a sudden, Colleen, we are not friends anymore. They're friends with each other, but all of a sudden, no one's talking to me. No one's calling me back. Now on the schoolyard, it's just them talking and kind of looking over their shoulder and whispering. Like, I feel like I'm on like the school playground again, and I am, but now I'm a mom, and this is happening. So what's going on? What happened? Can you explain to me what goes on inside of our female relationships where it seems like things are going well? And let me just say, I'm not aware of any egregious lines that I crossed. So I make a point of not saying negative things about people, not talking behind people's backs, being very positive about, people's ideas and, perspectives in life, supportive. So what happens? I know I'm sure it's happened to you. I think it's happened to everyone. I'm not unique. It's all universal, but it's happened a lot to me. And so, what is that process that we go through as women where somebody gets kicked out of a group and they're not sure why, asking for a friend, which is really me.
So I think number one, recognizing wholesale that nothing other people do is ever about you. It is always about them. And I think the kind of girl gang mentality, there's lots of things that can go on, but I think this idea of like needing other people to sort of mirror and reflect my own identity, my own beliefs, my own experiences, and holding little space for diversity is a real experience that I do think happens in sort of this in-group mentality. It's not contained to just women. It's something that we see sort of all over the place. And I've certainly had that happen to me too. especially when you're like, hey, I want to make some female friends, right? I want to have some mom friends when I'm going to be showing up to these like school events. But also recognizing that like you would not treat other people like that ever. And I call these kind of like weeding experiences. Like sometimes you do the weeding, other times other people weed because they are not for you and on your path. And, you know, I'm a big believer in like investing in your own self-love, like love yourself so much that you have love to give to other people and that you are immune to the harm and the hurt that happens to other people that don't love themselves and haven't done that work. And there's a great quote that I can't remember who said it, but it's like the reason that people are so shitty to others is because they don't love themselves at all. And their behavior towards other people reflects the way that they feel about themselves. And, you know, coming from a personal experience, at my like lowest point when I was much, much younger and I didn't have confidence, I didn't love myself. I was extremely judgmental of myself and therefore extremely judgmental of others and lost friends over that. Right. And so I think your experience is coming from women who are in that place that I was much younger. And it's like, you don't want to be around that energy vacuum. And so depersonalizing it and remembering that it's not about you and that like people who love themselves don't have time for that or interest in it is like a really great frame that I find to be really helpful and something that I coach all of my friends and even my sisters on when they hit those kind of situations.
It's good advice. Thank you for that. Super helpful.
Yeah.
There was, I interrupted you before. You were talking, there were a couple of things I was saying. The question was, basically like, are we at fault? Or are we to blame as women? Or is the problem that, we try to be liked, you know, too much? Is the problem that we're actually like holding ourselves down as a community of women? And you started to talk about the first part of like likability and kind of thinking through how we make decisions about the people who have earned the right to speak into our lives. And I jumped in and I interrupted you and asked you to share a little bit more about how we could really make those decisions. And you were going to say something next, and I interrupted you and I asked you to, like sort of like, as we say in corporate, put it in the parking lot. And so I wanted to just circle back and see if you remembered that next piece of what you were going to say next, so we didn't lose that.
Yeah, I think you asked me sort of where am I on that spectrum of like getting past the need to be liked, the need to have validation. And so I had this conversation with a close friend of mine recently and was talking about how I get, you know, I'll put a flip the script video on social media and it'll blow up and it inevitably will get people coming out of dark corners of the internet with, you know, negative things to say. And when I tell you that not only does it have zero effect on me, but fuels my inspiration, fuels our mission, becomes a source of content, genuinely makes me feel like this work is so important because if these people behind their screens are popping in to say this type of stuff anonymously, imagine how they treat the women in their lives in real life. And the idea of having somebody say something negative, even a stranger 5 years ago would have like, I would have crumbled. I would have been just, I need to silence myself. I need to never do that again, that there is something wrong with what I did because of this feedback I got from a complete stranger. And so looking at that is like one of the signals of the growth that I have had is that's a non-event and something that now fuels me. And we were sort of laughing about it because this sort of myth of likability follows women around, that you believe that being disliked means that you lose, right? That life is a popularity contest, and winning that popularity contest is how you become successful and get access to opportunities. And I think that myth is now dead to me, because I have learned that it's actually the opposite is true. Being like so sure of your sense of purpose, loving yourself, having your actions come from a place of like right intention, makes all of that need for approval and validation completely melt away. And you stop thinking about yourself and your own ego, right? If you're focused on needing people to like you, that's coming from a place of ego. And it's conditioned, right? But that's still coming from a place of ego versus like focused on how am I showing up to serve other people. It is no longer about you. And then you just stop caring. You're like, you know what? Like, goodbye. You're just like gnats to me at this point, you know? So I would say I'm fully on the other side of that. Not to say there aren't instances where a colleague at work will say something to me and it affects me, and I have to like bring myself back to what I just gave to you about they're just not quite at the place where I am, and I have to release them with love and hope that they someday find inspiration in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And, I think, I don't know, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. I think the workplace can be a bit more of a delicate environment because our places of work, our corporations, much of our advancement, our opportunities, the teams that we're invited to work on, the projects that we get to be a part of, is based on reputation, is based on how we are perceived to work with people, the quality of our work, the quality of our relationships, if people like working with us. And then, of course, our peers and our managers and our direct reports, they also give feedback, typically at some, level of regularity, even if it's just annually for a performance review. And then our compensation, our benefits, our rewards, associated with that feedback. There's like a real financial tie to that. Do you find yourself kind of managing these ideas of like likability and relationships, and to what extent you and others can talk about the value that you bring, the worth that you have, without sort of triggering that sabotage from peers around you? The question is, do you think about that differently in a place of work versus outside of work, say in more of like a social setting?
So yes, and I'll share a couple of things that I have found to be really helpful. The first is reframe the need to be liked as the need to be respected. And to be respected, you have to give respect. You have to do what you say. You have to create real value and impact in how you do your work. You have to be kind and respectful. As your general stance, you have to have good character. You can't be somebody that's gossiping. And so it cuts through the noise of like, does so-and-so like my hair, or like think that what I did this weekend was appropriate and interesting in their view of the world, right? To focusing on like what you're here to do in service of your team, in service of your company, in service of your customers. There's an amazing book written a bajillion years ago called How to Win Friends and Influence People that I think like cuts all the gendered BS around likability and talks about human psychology. And like, regardless of who you are, what do people respond to in the way that you behave, especially in a professional setting? And how do you start to practice those? They seem so simple that they're laughable, but most of us don't sort of intuitively do that when we are interacting with other people. So that's my first tip, is reframe likability to the need to be respected, and read that book because it gives you a great, simple set of rules for how to show up differently. The second, especially in today's rapidly changing world, is to shift your thinking as you as a cog in a corporate wheel to you as a business of one. That everybody that you are interacting with, you are showing up as a business of one, somebody who is there to serve and add value and do it in a way that is like professional. And I think that was really helpful for me because it also helped me focus at work on, as a business of one, like, who are my stakeholders? Who are the people that I need to really focus a lot of my time and attention on? And think about their experience in working with me as critical to my ability to continue to do business, right? And so then again, it cuts through the need to like be the most popular person in the break room, but instead focuses you on what you're really there to do. And then I think the last piece that I'll say on this is like the environment is not changing overnight. Like incremental progress has not worked. And women do have very real experiences where they're not working in a perfect meritocracy where their impact speaks for themselves. I think we've heard probably in all of our anecdotal experiences, watched really talented women get passed over for opportunities and heard feedback about their styles that was not fair to them. It was deeply gendered. Those are very real experiences. But my sort of take on this is that outcome would have been the same, right? It might have looked a little bit different, but focusing on trying to make yourself palatable and likable and achieve everybody's approval is not going to like get you to a better level than focusing on sort of your impact in some of the like frames that I just talked through. So it's really thinking about how if you're a business of one and you are treating others with respect and building strong, influential relationships, that will power your career. Even if this particular environment you're in is not going to serve you, it's going to help you get to that next one. And by the way, in this environment of layoffs and contractions, just because people like you doesn't mean that your company is not going to let you go. So like, it's just bad. I think it's just bad business acumen to make that your North Star.
I love that. So many incredible nuggets from you, Colleen. Thank you so much. I want to ask you two more questions. One is, what have we not talked about today? What did I not ask you about that you were really hoping to share with our listeners?
I think when we spoke earlier about building a business on the side of a corporate career, I get a lot of questions about that. And I think the reason I get so many questions about that is because so many of us feel called to do something that feels more connected to our sense of purpose, a problem that we want to explore how to solve. And I wanted to be able to give permission to anyone listening in who's kind of feeling that calling. I want to try something in a different way, to give yourself permission and some capacity to start to take some action on it. And you don't have to quit your job and overhaul your entire career path to start to build something on the side of your desk that feels really relevant and important to you. And there can be fear of doing that, similar fear that I described earlier of having anything going on besides a family means that you're not serious about your job. In fact, research tells us that helps you build the critical skills of the future that every company is trying to create, develop, buy right now. And listening to those polls and giving yourself some space to be new and be a beginner and try something different is going to make you stronger in your career. And it might end up becoming as big as Dr. Taryn Marie and her podcast and business if you keep at it.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. That was a very nice, unexpected compliment. And my hope is that, in fact, you and so many others will just rise to an incredible level that, I want to say the word surpass here, and then I'm also cognizant of the fact that introduces this sort of unintended layer of competition or something that our female relationships can be so fraught with. So let me say that I hope that everyone, especially you, Colleen, gets to have the level of success and contribution and impact and, and all of the sort of blessings and visibility and opportunity to contribute and amplify your message, that come with that. Because I know that there is, for us as women and for us as humans, there is absolutely enough room for all of us.
I love that so much. And I hear you on the, even the thinking of this is a competition and there's this surpassing that happens. The other thing that we didn't get to talk about, which I think is so important, is we've kind of been handed this belief about success, but in reality, success is just a concept, that your greatest failure is somebody in this world's absolute dream. And your view of success is somebody else's rock bottom. And so deciding for yourself, what does success mean based on your values, and letting that guide you is super important. And I love this idea of making yourself an expander. It's expanding the people around you, making them see their potential, what's possible for them, and then being an expander of your own potential, which really means paying attention, not just to the moments where you feel like someone's trying to diminish you and choosing to kind of release that with love, but also recognizing that every moment you do have the opportunity to either step forward into growth and kind of expand where you're going, or step backward into a place of comfort and fear, and giving yourself those pep talks to keep taking those steps forward is how you sort of create success in whatever way you define it. And it took me a long time to learn that.
Thank you for sharing that incredible wisdom that has taken you to cultivate, and you were able to distill for us in just a couple of minutes. Colleen, I know everybody here is, those who are listening to this episode, they are already checking you out on Instagram. They're looking at Growth Incubator. They're looking you up and getting to know more about your work. How would you like to interact with people? How would you like people to find you and reach out and connect with you?
So I would love people to connect with the community that we have at Growth Inc. So I think the best place to go is to our Instagram platform and scroll through some of the messages until you find one that resonates with you, and connect with the women who are showing up in the comments and are, helping us kind of fuel this and keep this going is the best place to start.
Awesome. Well, people will not be scrolling very long. They will find a message that connects and resonates with them right away. And as I said when we started, your work is on its own incredibly powerful, period. And one of the things I deeply love about following you and being a member of your community is that you have, in your very unique way, bringing yourself and your personality to the table, found a way to be able to share these messages of men and women and gender equality and inequity in a way where I'm both, simultaneously convicted, yes, that happens. And oh my gosh, this is also giving me a bit of a chuckle. So thank you so much for the work that you do, for the way that you are simultaneously moving forward your own agenda as an entrepreneur, a growth incubator, as a management consultant, as a writer, and just embracing all facets of who you are in your life. Thank you for being a role model and an example for all of us.
Thank you so much for saying that. And thanks for the opportunity to come on the podcast and share a little bit more. I'm really excited to hear the feedback. And I don't think this will be our last time chatting, because we do have so much more ground to cover.
You heard it here. We get to chat again. Thank you so much, Colleen. Hey there, Flourish or Fold listeners. I want to thank Colleen Bordeaux for joining us today. She was absolutely incredible. And as I'm thinking about our time together, one of the key points that we talked about was this idea of who we should let into our lives, whose opinions and ideas and perspectives and feedback do we allow to have credence. And I wanted to share with you something that's been instructive in my own life. When I have people post negative things on social media or I hear something gossipy that's happening, the first litmus test that I use is I ask myself, does that person have my telephone number? If they do, I ask them to call or text me so we can set up a time for me to think about hearing their feedback. If they don't have my number, they don't know me well enough for me to be listening to their feedback. Until next time, Flourish or Fold listeners, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. We know that challenge, change, and complexity is the fabric of what it means to be human. Please do, as you're listening to these podcasts, leave a review, download the episode, and share them with your colleagues, your coworkers, your family members, and friends. I would be delighted to have you continue to amplify our podcast and our message. Thank you so much for being here. This is Dr. Taryn Marie. Hey there, Flourish or Fold listeners. As a mental health professional and someone who cares deeply about our overall health and wellness, what I know for sure is that our mental health doesn't just stop below our neck. Mental health is about feeling not only great in our minds, it's also about feeling great in our bodies. Now, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of information about new weight loss drugs, injectable weight loss drugs that are either on back order, completely inaccessible, or if you have access to them, so expensive that the vast majority of American people cannot get a hold of them. Well, I made it my mission to find a way for everyone to have access to these medications in a way that is affordable, because I see how life-changing they are for so many people. Now, I've spent months vetting companies, and I'm excited to announce that I believe I have found the very best. I've partnered with bodycaremd.com because they offer the highest grade weight loss medications. These are called GLP-1s. I have been to their FDA registered facility and I've watched them make this product myself with my own eyes. Body Care MD provides the absolute best weight loss medications. And if you want to get to the weight that you have desperately struggled to get to for years with diet and exercise and simply nothing works, there's no shame in wanting to feel better, to have more energy, to have more confidence in the way that you look. You're going to go to the website and I've got a code for you to get 20% off. It's Dr. Taryn, Dr. Taryn, Taryn 20. You'll get 20% off your first month. You will answer some questions online and you'll be connected with a network of licensed doctors in all 50 states who will carefully review your medical records and ensure that you're a good candidate. So check out Body Care MD, enter the code Dr. Taryn 20 and receive 20% off your first order. Here's to having access to these medications that have been in short supply, and of course, having the opportunity to have the body, the energy, and the health that you've always dreamed of.